So we're going to start the Q&A panel now, so if everyone wants to take a seat. We're going to try something a little different this time around because there's so many experts in the room that bringing all of us up here would just be 250 people all sitting on this stage. So instead, we're just going to keep it, it's more like a discussion. Unfortunately, we also could not make a 250-person circumference circle. So what we're going to do is questions will be asked. I will repeat the question so everyone can hear it. I'll do my best to direct to the person who can answer it, but if you think you have the answer, raise your hand. And then I will bring a microphone to you, or there's a couple microphones in the crowd that people can use. Mike's got one, Alex has one, Jochen has one. So if you're near them, they'll give you one. Otherwise, I'll give you one. This might be chaos. We're just trying something new, so bear with us. All right, so let's start with questions. Don't everybody ask at once.
Is there a Dory?
There may be a Dory. I think there's a Dory. I'm just the guy who gets up and talks. That's my job.
We can ask questions meanwhile.
Yeah, anyone who has questions to start with. All right, I'll start with a question. How well was BlinkOn planned? I'll answer it. Very well. Okay. Yeah, back there.
How many people feel they couldn't fit all the things they wanted in? Like, can you have a show of hands of, like, there were topics that I missed because I wanted to attend something else?
Oh, okay.
There's always the question of, like,
Right.
it'd be nice if we had more time.
Okay, so question for everyone who didn't hear was, were there talks that you wanted to attend but couldn't due to scheduling conflicts, overlap, or just wanting to talk to people around here? So we'll just do a quick show of hands. Were there talks you had to miss? Okay, wow. Follow-up question based on that, would you have liked there to be more time, like BlinkOn were a day longer or something? Wow. Okay, for my own pride, would you have said that of previous BlinkOns? Yes. No, put your hand down. Okay. Okay, that's an interesting question. What's up?
Maybe we can use like a schedule optimizer or something.
Okay.
Like a scheduler?
So the non-question was maybe we could use a schedule optimizer to make it even better. That is true. Everything was done on the fly. Sorry to everyone that I pinged you 5 minutes before and said your talk was moved from tomorrow to 5 minutes from now. What's up? Can we record talks that were not in the main room in the future? Probably. Yeah. Alex, you want to answer? You have to press the button, maybe?
Yes. The logistics are a little bit harder to do that, but I think a lot of these conversations, it would be great to have them.
Yep.
It's no different than a Google meeting, right? You can just record the GVC. That's what Philip and I did for our BlinkOn talk last year.
So just set up the application.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the guidance in the past that we were encouraged not to do that, and I think last time one was recorded but never was.
I released mine. No one yelled at me for it. I don't know. I mean, there is guidance about recording meetings, but public meetings are explicitly exempt from the guidance about recording meetings.
I will add that if we are recording all the side talks, it will change the tone of them a lot from being like a small interpersonal conversation into something that is, people will be more careful about what they say.
I wonder if, I think some of them were presentations and some of them were talks. And if it's brainstorming, you probably don't want to record those. But if it's a talk, then yeah.
All good points.
Can I also just suggest that if you are one of the people down the front, can you stand up on the stage with Drew when you're answering a question so people can see you and interact with you?
Or maybe instead of standing on stage, just stand up.
Or stand up.
And so people can see you, so we don't have people attacking me.
We have one question from the Dory.
Okay, wait, let's save it. We've got questions coming up now. Let's keep that one in our pocket if we need it. Yeah. I saw some other hands.
The mystery question for you.
Yeah, mystery question. Yeah, what's up? Okay. Would people want more empty... All right, this one can just be a hand-raising one. Would people want more empty time, like even more unconference than unconference, where it's just hanging out? Okay. Everyone said yes. I got a maybe from Charlie. That's it. Okay. Would you definitively not want more free time? Okay. Any other questions?
Next time, can we schedule this on a Wednesday and Thursday and Tuesday and Wednesday instead of at the very end of the week? Simplify logistics reviewing.
Let's talk less about BlinkOn logistics and do that in feedback.
Yeah, let's use this to set the tone. Hopefully it's not logistics. What's the question? Oh, okay.
Hey, are there non-Googlers, contributors in the room? Could you raise hands, like, for us to see there? Good. So the question is to you and to everybody else. How do you feel about the dynamics in Blink? Is it now easier to contribute changes? Is it now easier to understand what's going on? Is it more transparency? Or are we lacking just whatever you think is more challenging, most challenging, or any good dynamics, whatever comes to your mind?
Yeah, if you have feelings, raise your hands and we'll get a mic to you.
Hi, Yoav Weiss. I'm from Akamai. So you're saying easier. It's never been particularly hard to contribute to Blink and Chromium. There are some administrative / computer system related friction with anything related to like the fuzzer, and there are a lot of things that are restricted to Google only, and then I have to go ask someone for permissions, and then I usually get them, but it adds some overhead to the process of working on the project.
You're good, weird.
Yeah, but
Oh, stand up. Can you stand up?
Yeah,
Sorry.
adding to that, I think like the fuzzer and in some cases some bot configurations are not easy to reproduce. So you get a report like this doesn't work on bot XYZ, and it's really hard to reproduce it locally in some cases.
Any other external people? We could hear more about what it's like contributing. Yeah. Yeah, what's up?
My question is to anyone who's a web developer. To anyone who's a web developer here, is that on?
Yeah.
What was it? I know we have a few folks from Facebook, from others. So, yeah, anyone here who's a web developer primarily? I mean, as in, like, many of us are, but so we got one from Zalando. Are the Facebook folks still here? I was wondering if there's. I didn't want to. Oh, there we go. I just was interested if what your experiences were like, and if this was valuable, or if this was just kind of bizarre, or what.
Yeah.
I think it was very valuable. Okay.
Tell us who you are.
So name, where you're from.
Name, rank.
Yeah. Yeah. Treat it like an
My name's Vlad.
icebreaker.
I work for Facebook. Came here from California. Yeah, I think this was a very useful conference. I think got to talk to a lot of key people and discuss some of the ideas that we had. So yeah, I think we're going to continue these conversations on the mailing list and the other channels. So yeah.
Yeah, so some follow-up questions. I have one, but Dimitri wanted to know, will there be more people here next year?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
That's a commitment.
Follow-up question, though, what parts were the most useful to you?
I think the presentations were very informative in terms of getting like understanding of what you guys are working on, what's in the pipeline. But the one-on-one discussions about the specific challenges that we're facing and sort of hearing the developers' take on how we might go about resolving them, either from our side or your side, I think were particularly helpful.
Did you have anything as the only other person who raised their hand?
So to me, the discussion about the upcoming specs.
Who are you and where are you from?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Bhupati. I work for Zalando from Berlin.
Okay.
So yeah, to me, the discussion about the latest specs or the spec that is going to land in the browsers was really useful, and knowing the internals and implementation of the same was also useful. And yeah, next time I'll try to bring along some others as well.
You know, so many other questions for the web developers? Put them on the spot. Okay, broader, back to just general questions. Yakin is gone. I don't know if what the Dory question was. Oh, all right. What's up? I thought I saw a hand fly up over there. Oh, he tricked me. Anything else? All right, what's the Dory question? Okay. We made it like 5-10 minutes, guys. Come on.
So here's the Dora question. What is the state?
Oh no.
What is the state of Blink tab serialization? Tab. Blink tab.
Wait, where are you reading? I was reading something
I'm
else.
reading there. What are you reading?
Oh, okay.
I take the
Sorry,
laptop.
I was reading the question that was the Dory thing, which is what would you like to be asked at the QA session? I thought that was the question. I feel a little dumb now. So it's the question is, what is the state of Blink tab serialization? It's like very specific. All right, what is Blink tab serialization? Oh, all right, hold on, get him a mic.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I work on infrastructure. I don't actually know anything about Blink, but Blink tab serialization is the idea of being able to take all of the state of the rendering process and serialize it to disk so that a tab can be completely suspended and restored in like memory pressure situations. And that includes the layout tree, the rendering tree, all of the compositing stuff, like everything, the entire V8 state, everything you could possibly want, so you can bring it back exactly where it was. The state of this is that some pieces of it have been worked on by some people in a kind of haphazard fashion, and no one is really putting a lot of effort into it right now, but September through March of next year, there might be a team of 4 college students working on it, like putting 40 hours a week towards it. So it might actually get done, and I'll have an update for you in BlinkOn in a year.
Okay. Elliot, do you have something you want to say?
This microphone doesn't work very well. I can just talk really loud. Is that better? No, it does work. No, it's on the video. All right.
You tried. You failed.
So that's my team. I didn't know about the college students, so that's sweet. Free engineers. So we experimented with it. It turns out that on a lot of devices, writing out that much memory takes a really long time. It's really hard to serialize the V8 heap. There's a bunch of clever things you can do there, but it's not clear where the payoff is. And instead, what we've been investing in is tab suspend. What we observe is that a lot of people that complain that Chrome does too much stuff, Brendan up here has 400 tabs. Alex Russell has 800 tabs. You could compete on number of tabs. So what we've been looking into is a way to take a background tab and suspend it. On Android, after 5 minutes, we actually pause the tab, but then we don't do a very good job at making the tab become very small. And so we're looking at bringing that to desktop, and then also shrinking tabs. So we'll shrink the strings, get rid of other resources, and we think that we can make tabs somewhere between 30 and 80% smaller, and then just to stop them from running. And that actually goes a long way towards achieving the same goals as tab serialization, but is much more practical because you don't have to figure out how to serialize a running program.
Someone should tell the college students. Okay. Any other questions? Well, I say any. We are here for an hour, so come up with questions. Yeah, they're locking the door. You guys.
I will point out that people wanted more free-form time instead of sessions. We could have 40 minutes of free-form time.
No one heard that. Okay, to get...
I actually have a question.
Perfect.
When are we shipping pointer events? I feel like every year we're shipping pointer events.
It's behind a flag now. You can. There was a lightning talk on it. You see the lightning talk? Anyway, it's behind a flag. Turn it on in Chrome flags. It almost is fully working. The there's a couple bugs to be worked out, but the real problem is actually your fault. we want to make some design changes to pointer events. In particular, we don't want to do hit testing on every touch move, because you rightly pointed out, like no other mobile platform has that property. And so on principle, we don't want the web to have that property. We also think it's just the wrong design, but it has compat impact. And so the biggest thing left is to figure out how much compat impact does that have, and can we take that breaking change? And so now that it's functionally complete, it's once a couple of the remaining big bugs are fixed, which I think they're hoping by end of June. Navid said that he hoped to have those bugs fixed so that we could flip it to the experimental state, and then we'll get some more feedback from users, and then a bunch of us are going to Redmond in July to do a hackathon and basically sit with Mozilla and jQuery folks and compare notes on compat data and try to see, for the open places where we are behaving differently than Edge, try to better quantify what that impact is, and if we can agree that the impact is tolerable, then I think we're ready to ship. Mozilla will be there too, but with Microsoft, yes. Primarily, we're going to Redmond to be with Microsoft. But yeah, Mozilla and jQuery are coming too, because they have implementations as well. And because we're getting close, Mozilla just kicked up their effort, and they're implementing pretty quickly too. So we're close to all being ready to ship. Those of us that are planning on working on it anyway.
Charlie, and then Ian. He got the mic first. Oh, a follow-up, so wait one second.
So I know that we're flipping to vsync aligned input events soon, right? What would be the probability that we could get other vendors to also standardize on that?
So vsync aligned input means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There's actually, if we wanted to vsync align input for everyone who cares, there'd be 3 places where we'd have to vsync align input. So I'm not completely sure which version of vsync align input you're referring to. The one that probably matters the most from a web compat perspective is delivering input directly before RAF. So we are going to be working on that fairly soon. Getting other browser vendors to do that also, I haven't really thought about it whatsoever. Rick, have you thought about that?
Safari basically does, right? iOS 9, they did it in the OS. So just like Android did it in the OS. So we almost have this already on Android, but because it's coming from the OS and there's some thread hops there, it's possible that it can get a little bit out of sync. But I've got a test page, rbuyers.net/event-timing.html. You can run that on different browsers, and it'll show you when the events are coming in relative to when RAF is coming in. And in practice, Chrome on Android and Safari on iOS, on latest versions of iOS, are all vsync aligned. Edge isn't, and we've talked with the Microsoft team a bunch about this, and I think I've gotten some response that it seems like a problem. One of their concerns is that sometimes you really do want more input data than 60 hertz. So for example, for stylus drawing scenarios, you really do want more samples. And so we probably need to ship a new API, which there was no path to do in touch events. No one wanted to work with us on this API. So once we're ready to ship pointer events, next on my list for pointer events is the historical points API. Just like Android has, you can say, give me the historical positions. And then when an event is coalesced, so for stylus, if the stylus is sampling at 120 hertz, every pointer move event will actually have 2 historical samples inside of it. And then that eliminates that objection that Microsoft had. And my hope is, if once we can do that, then we can all agree that yes, vsync aligning is the right thing to do.
Charlie, I think you had a question?
Yeah, so I was going to ask, what do we feel are the good parts about Edge being released? Like there's this new browser in the ecosystem, and it changes everything about it. What opportunities does that allow us?
I'm holding a mic, so I'm going to talk. Other people should answer too. Do you want to talk first? I know you have. So I'll tell you that I'm super excited we care about making the web better, right? And to have Microsoft go from not really caring about the web to caring has been really helpful in our mission. We want developers to have a predictable experience developing for the web, and having Microsoft go and try to clone Chrome's behavior and figure out where they were different from us. They've filed so many valuable bugs for us that are like not just hey, this esoteric thing is different, but this thing behaves differently on these sites, and it matters for web compat, and their prioritization has really been valuable. So I think Chrome has gotten better as a result of Edge trying to become more compatible with us, and it's also sparked a bunch of spec discussions. So I think the specs have gotten better as a result. So those are the biggest positives for me. There's others.
I was just going to say, like, from a long-term health of the web perspective, there's also having diversity of browsers is what gives us long-term health of the web. If we get to a point where we have one dominant browser, that's bad for everybody. The web loses its sense of not being owned by a single company, its sense of reach. It's sort of like someone else can make a web browser also, right? If we get to a point where there's one web browser to rule them all, then the whole standard side of things isn't really effectual anymore. Anything that web browser ships is effectively a de facto standard. So having multiple strong players in the browser ecosystem helps everybody. The other thing is Microsoft has actually been a great partner with us. There's a lot of we're both very well aligned in caring about the web, and that's worked really well in terms of like figuring out new APIs to do on the web, and we've had contention on edge cases like this vsync aligned input thing, but it's mostly been a super positive and healthy discussion, and we've learned from each other quite a bit.
Oh, I'm going to add one more thing. Since nobody else has said it yet, I think competition is super important. Like, just to add on to what you're saying, like, we shouldn't delude ourselves. If we didn't have the competition pressure, then it could be bad for the web.
So I have one more question, maybe for Rick again to answer. Like, what is the current state of our user counters? Is it trustworthy?
Trustworthy?
Trustworthy, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, okay, we talked about this a bit in our predictability session. The question is, what's the state of our use counters? So we believe the use counters are giving us valuable information, but they're also flawed. So I'll tell you the ways in which they're flawed. On render shutdown, fast shutdown, they don't get reported at all. So that means when you go to a page and then and then link to another origin, all the use counters that occurred on that page before you linked out don't get reported. So we may have a systematic bias against sites that tend to link out a lot, like, say, search engines. They're also flawed in that we typically use page visits as a denominator. We want to report percent of page views, and page visits is not calculated correctly today. The loader is lying to us and saying that the page was done loading. They sometimes report us that 7 times for the same page. So depending on how many SVG documents you have on your page, for example, that count goes up. So there are some systematic biases where we report a lower count for pages that have more SVG docs on them, for example. So if you have lots of SVG docs, you're not weighted as highly as someone that doesn't. I've got fixes for both of those, but I'm worried. The data has, like, we've figured out what works based on like iterating in practice, right? Like we've removed some things where the number is really low and it's gone really fine, and we've removed some things where the number was high and it's gone terribly. So we have some like limits. There's no magic number in the middle, but I think we know from experience that the numbers are useful in predicting how much problem we're going to have by removing. So I'm a little loath to just suddenly change the meaning of the numbers. So I'm probably going to check in a version of the use counters that, I mean, this is partly why we're spinning up this whole platform predictability effort, is this data matters a lot, and it needs engineering owners, and no one's ever really owned it from an engineering perspective before. So now that's Philip and my problem to own that. There's also a separate problem that, by design, use counters have always been biased in favor of old-style apps that navigate on every link click instead of single-page apps. So the most modern Ajax-style pages get counted as 1 visit, or 7, depending on this page visits bug, where sites that like link out to a new and actually navigate every time you click get counted more heavily. So we're biasing kind of away from some modern apps. So if we're going to fix these other bugs, I probably want to try to do something to fix that semantics at the same time. There's a bug assigned to me. If you want to chime in, I'd love your feedback. You can go to the platform predictability sites page, and from there, there's our task list, and it's one of the things on the task list, and there's a bug.
Can you make it public?
Can I make what public?
Public sites page?
Yeah, public slice page. I'm not doing anything internal, Google internal for predictability. I don't even have an internal page.
Because that would be unpredictable.
Exactly.
From another perspective on that, another thing missing historically is intranets. A lot of intranets turn off reporting, and so that's a bit of a black hole for us. I don't think we actually have a solution, but we should at least be aware of it.
Yep.
So the one thing we can do there is we have a bunch of folks who have connections with some of those companies. So if we know that there's a problem that we suspect is going to be hidden behind that, that's going to be used by a lot of enterprises, but not a lot of sort of publicly available websites. Sometimes we can write up special one-pagers or whatever and push that through those channels to make more likely. Because we saw there's a thread on BlinkDev, I think a couple months ago, where someone was expressing frustration that they were trying to follow all the Blink intents. It's like, that's impossible. Don't do that. And so we had to have a better communication channel for that group. We have one that's a little bit developed.
Yeah, I just want to add. So I'm Kenji I'm on the loading team, and we've been chasing the same GUIs. Like so far, I've been looking at many different UMA, and yet we don't have like a UMA that represents the page load from the user's viewpoint. So I'm interested in fixing that. So we should talk.
So I missed your predictability talk, so this may have been covered. If it is, just tell me to go watch that. But have you done like statistical analysis on those numbers versus the things we've tried to remove? I feel like do we have reason to think those numbers are actually valuable? That's like, because it skews so much. Because we prove it.
Yeah, we haven't done statistical analysis. All we've done is anecdotal, So I think that's a fair thing to ask now that we have a project.
I would put that on the project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. It's tough because how do you quantify? I mean, we could probably say success, not success, or not sure, and then we could do a statistical analysis on the success, not success cases. Yeah, I mean, we do. It's not the only signal we use, right? We also, for example, look at the HTTP archive data or cookbook data, and those signals do tend to correlate. Like just anecdotally, we know they correlate.
I'm asking statistically, do they correlate? That's really
Yeah, we should do that analysis. I'll add it to our list. Thanks.
Okay. So unrelated to UMA, but regarding metrics, the Facebook talked about the fact that there are like currently RUM available metrics don't expose anything that is necessarily meaningful for their use case, which means that they have to profile their entire app. I'm in a situation where I'm trying to figure out, for example, for preload, I'm trying different things and trying to figure out whether it's helping or not on arbitrary websites with using only what I have available as RUM metrics. And I have a hard time rationalizing using any of them as the metric. So are there any plans to work on metrics that are more related to first content, first paint, first interaction? What's the plan there?
Cool. Yeah, so there was a session, yes, my name is Paul. I work on performance dev tools and metrics. And so yeah, we had a session called Progressive Web Metrics just a few hours ago. It's recorded too, so I'll share that with you. But basically, yeah, metrics has been an area of interest across a lot of teams recently, and defining better ones, both, of course, for internal tracking through UMA, but getting it available and exposed to developers, whether they're like running, performance tests in like a CI environment or just like out on the web, is very important for us. So there's a number of metrics that we're working on definitions of. First, meaningful paint. There's more. We're very interested in being able to provide good quantifiable definitions of load that incorporate main thread activity so that interactivity is very clear. And some of the discussions that we actually had over the past few days were around understanding the balance of exposing like atomic level timing metrics to JavaScript around cache timing and paint timing and frame timing versus something where it would be more like we report a trace and like dump a trace to the owner of the site. And so there's kind of, pros and cons of both, but regardless, making sure that web developers have something better than window load and DOM content loaded is a big priority. So, yeah.
Is it on? Yep. So despite all the nice cleanup since Blink fork, the code base can still be a bit hard to navigate sometimes. So it's been a bit controversial in the past, but would it make sense to have a whole to fix it, where you have your experts add class level comments to the parts of the code base they know well?
You're here. Does anyone have any comments to make, or we just support that?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to grab a microphone?
He said yes.
Elliot will personally go and add.
I feel like every BlinkOn, someone from a different team comes up to me and says, because there was this culture in WebKit of not adding comments. There's like a fear. So someone comes up to me and it's like always like very hesitant, like, is it okay if I add comments now? Yes, add comments. Document all of your stuff. There's like, we have Markdown now you can check in. It shows up like really nice in like the source repo stuff. We have all this tooling, like please add Markdown, please add class level comments, please document your stuff. Like I will rubber stamp your patches if they are documenting things, just like please do that. We're very accepting. And I do think it would be useful if we had a more broad effort and we just like went component by component and said, like it might be nice to like just trade engineers actually, like have the layout engineers go like read the paint code and then write an email to them and be like, none of this makes any sense, please document it, and then do the opposite. And I suspect you'd end up with a lot of like really nice diagrams and stuff, and we'd be in a better place.
Or anger.
Sorry. You're next.
So I'm Jeffrey. I work on Web Bluetooth. I want to ask, what is the Blink change, like new API or refactoring or whatever, that you're not actively working on that you're most excited about?
That was my in the back pocket question. If we got silent again. Okay. So the question was, what's the feature, API, project, whatever that you're not working on or that's not being worked on at Blink right now that you wish was being worked on or feel is really important?
I was just thinking, like, don't pick your own project, but anything that's being actively
Oh, so it is actively worked on. I missed that. So something that's being worked on that you wish you were helping with? That's just you like it. You just like it.
Just that you're excited about.
Okay, just that you're excited about. Yeah. What's something we're working on that you think is cool? Onion soup. Okay.
It's not really Blink, but on the browser side of the code base, there's a project called Lucky Luke, which is scheduling for the browser side. Basically, all the tasks go through the same scheduling code, and then instead of having 64 threads or whatever we have now, they can have a thread pool and actually have the appropriate number of threads for the device. It's cool.
Everybody else hates everything we're working on.
So I like Please Navigate a lot because it cleans up a lot of navigation code, and also I think it improves security a bit by not trusting the renderer so much anymore.
Oh, we got some
I'm excited about V8 wrapper tracing.
V8 wrapper tracing was said.
I'm super excited about Ignition, by the way. I saw a slide where it actually said Silver Bullet on, on it. So that's what I'm going for.
Oh.
I'm super excited about the making the V8 bindings faster in that layer. So excited.
Pretty excited about turbofan and getting better optimization for some of the ES 2015 features.
The one you should definitely try is the passive event listener intervention. I've been running it like enabled by default, and it's awesome. So check the flags. I forgot the name of it, but if you look for passive event listener, you want to check the main document one. Right?
Yes. Chrome flags force passive event listeners set to document level. Yeah, set to document level. We think we can ship that intervention. It feels really good.
There's someone back there. Wait, I don't think we can hear you, so yeah.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about Premiano's work to slim traces because I will finally be able to trace some gigantic SVGs, which are always out of memory the browser right now.
Actually, I want to add to that one. I'm also very excited about memory tracing. Memory tracing is super awesome if you haven't used it. It's like, for those of you who don't know, since we launched the project, every 6 to 18 months, we have this big fire drill of like, how does Gmail use a gigabyte of memory? And then we like fix a bunch of memory leaks, and then it regresses again, and then we have another fire drill. And a lot of that is lack of memory tooling. Every time we do this, it's like, oh my God, it's so hard to tell where the memory is going, and memory tracing has made that infinitely easier. It's super awesome. You should try it.
Who's working on memory tracing? I don't know.
Ah. Same as the other tracing stuff.
Just scroll anchoring in case I can hear.
So please do try it. And if you find any issue, like we mitigate a reflow, and we actually block the page, there is an URL for that. So it's g.co report bad reflow. So just put URL, check one of the options, and we'll take care of it.
Slimming Paint V2 because we'll finally be able to draw things in the right order.
Does this count if I don't know if maybe I work on this. There's the new layout project to like rework how we do layout to spit out immutable trees. It's super awesome.
Layout NG.
Yeah, it's layout NG is the name of it. Yeah.
My shout out async await.
Async await.
WebAssembly.
So another project I'm excited
I'm really excited about Origin
trials.
Swarming of layout tests. That's going to be awesome.
Are we done with the walking around and asking what you like the most? Okay. I have a question to the group. Chrome sheriffing after Blink sheriffing, Blink gardening, how does it feel? How are you doing?
After they merged?
After the merge?
Raise your hand if bad.
Bad.
Or like worse.
Worse.
Okay, raise your hand if better. Raise your hand if completely indifferent. Raise your hand if so indifferent you didn't even raise your hand. Yeah, raise your hand if you do sheriffing.
Wait, Chromium?
Chromium sheriffing. Yeah,
Chromium
sorry.
sheriffing. Okay.
Okay, wait. Of those people, leave your hands up, leave your hands up. Put your hands down if you're satisfied with Chromium sheriffing. More or less. Like, okay. But. Okay.
Why are there so few hands? What's going on?
So there's
What? Can someone give Julia? Yeah, Julia.
I was just saying to raise your hand if you belong on the sheriff rotation but somehow are not on it. Or would like to switch back onto it.
Yep.
Does this include like performance sheriffs?
No, there's an actual Chromium sheriff. Yeah.
But if you are a performance sheriff, you are not required to be on the Chromium sheriff.
Right.
So that's exempted.
Or a memory sheriff.
Or a memory sheriff. If you are a sheriff of some sort.
Raise your hand if you're not a sheriff. Of any kind.
If you're a committer and not a sheriff.
If you're a committer and not a sheriff.
I
Okay.
know I'm on the list, but it happened so that I've never been on the Chrome sheriff for some reason. Don't know why.
All right, someone add him to the.
Sorry. So technically, the way it's supposed to work is that everyone who is a committer and for historical reasons is also a Googler should be on one rotation, whether it's Chromium sheriffing or used to be Blink gardening or performance sheriffing or something like that. You should be on one rotation if you are a committer and a Googler. If you are both of those things and not on a rotation, please come talk to us because we don't have enough people on these rotations. Or by us, I mean infra team in general, because we know where the rotation configuration files live. If you are a committer and not a Googler and want to be on one of these rotations, also please come talk to us because in some cases, like this is a policy that we should probably have further conversations about. So yeah, come talk to infra team.
Is triaging mutually exclusive with that or not? Because I've seen on triage too. Both or either or?
I have one more poll
Moment it
question.
is. Yes.
Well, it's both.
I think.
Because it needs to be on one of the rotations. But
Yeah, so it is the case that the bug triaging rotation counts.
At the moment, there are two rotations that you can do that are alternatives to sheriffing. One is the general Blink bug triage rotation. It is not your like sub-teams bug triage rotation. It's the like, we're trying to work through this like ancient backlog of Blink bugs that have accrued over 8 years that we need to like break down. It's as much work as sheriffing. It is not like a little side project thing. You should spend the whole 2 days doing it, et cetera, et cetera. The other one is there's a Blink infra one, which is the spirit of this is fix the infrastructure instead of like keep it afloat by sheriffing. And so you can do either of those.
Update.
I think
9 days ago, I moved from
trying to say something.
bug sheriffing to Chromium sheriffing. But it's all right. You got the type and you're
I think possibly some people are confused about what rotation they're on as well, because it's like such a large pool now that if you haven't been called up to do something yet, you just don't know what you're on. I don't know if there is an easy way for people to check, but I think I'm on sheriffing and I haven't been asked to do it yet.
There is not a handy-dandy friendly tool that will tell you which rotation you're on, but there is a collection of JSON files that will tell you what rotation you're on. I'll get an action item for myself to publicize this a little better, because people should know what rotations they're on, and everyone should be on one rotation. So we can make that easier to tell what's actually going on.
I think Julia had something she wanted to say.
I just want to. Oh, yeah, it's on. Okay. I wanted to put a desperate plea out there on behalf of all the people who sheriff not in Mountain View time zone. There's been a lot of feedback that there are not enough people in that rotation. So if you don't work in Pacific Standard Time and you're not on the main sheriffing rotation, it sounds like they would really appreciate having you join that one instead.
Sorry, just to clarify, that was anywhere in North America, right?
I want to ask one more survey question because I want to sort of get the temperature of the room. Can you raise your hand if you think the world would be a better place if more Blink contributors did Chromium sheriffing? Yeah, would the world be a better place if more Blink contributors did Chromium sheriffing? I mean, is this important to us? Okay, thank you.
Contraposit or counter, do you think it'd be a worse place if more people did it? Okay, so it's positive or neutral. Can someone get a microphone?
I think there's a risk to that, in that not so much for the Opera employees as much, but if you're just a contributor in your free time and you're a committer, and then now you're obliged to also spend like your full time on doing a rotation, that might discourage people, and so I think there's a risk in that.
I just want to add that I think the culture shock has been harder on some of the Chromium sheriffs who suddenly don't know what to do with all these layout test bots that are read and stuff like that. So there's been a learning curve for them that maybe has been hard to find the right information.
By far the most negative feedback that the merge has gotten has been Chromium sheriffs who don't know how to deal with layout tests.
I just
had a follow-up. Would the world be a better place if Blink contributors, instead of Chromium sheriffing, were working on the layout test expectations? So, which has 1,400 lines currently. So raise hands if you think.
I will actually use this as an opportunity to plug a thing we're doing. Yes, sorry. So a thing that many of you know we've done in the past year or so is have more team structure around bug triage, where teams own certain bug labels and we do much better triage, and it's been super awesome. Brandon has this chart of like bug growth within Blink, where it's this like exponential growth of filed bugs, and you look at the open bugs and it was like a slightly smaller but basically exponentially growing list of open bugs, and then we started instituting this process, and like the shape of the curve went from this to that, and it's super awesome, and it's like continuing to go down. The corollary to that, or the follow-up to that, is we want to do the same thing for tests. Basically, we're going to take the layout test directories, have teams own them. The leads of those teams will then make quarterly goals around driving down the number of failures, and we'll fix this in a sustainable way as opposed to the ways we've tried to do it in the past with like these like fix-it things that don't really work.
There's no one sharing things, right? So how do you regression test? In order, it'll give kind of an ongoing responsibility to take care of.
The idea is that the team leads, it's their responsibility to set appropriate goals and drive those numbers down. We'll build tooling to show you those numbers, so you can be like, you know, the input team has 53 flaky tests and 107 failing tests or whatever, and you make a goal to like by the end of the quarter we'll make that 80 or whatever. That's the idea. So far we have a spreadsheet populated and we have about like half of the directories accounted for, so we need some help finishing that process so we can get the initial like process in place.
So if you're a team lead, sign up.
Is it possible to add to that goal also to move away from JS test and onto test harness and things that are potentially exportable to web platform tests?
I'm volunteering.
I hope so. I mean, web platform test isn't the right thing for everything. There should be integration tests that we should share with other browser vendors. That's a big part of the predictability effort. I'm excited. Lots of teams are being successful with that. We think we need to do some work first to provide the infrastructure to make it easier. It doesn't really seem fair to ask everybody to do it right now. But some teams are already being successful. So if you care about that, yes, definitely start doing it. And then talk to us, platform-predictability@chromium.org. We can talk about the details.
Following up on that, Mike, I work on Blink. If you are writing new tests, they should be using test harness. And if you're reviewing a patch that comes in and is writing new tests, please ask the author to rewrite their test in test harness, and like that's the future.
I will add one exception to that rule. I agree with that rule. The exception to that rule is sometimes you have tests that can't be tested with regular web platform APIs and you need internal APIs. Historically, we've done expose an internal API to layout tests and do that. We're moving away from that, which is to say Elliot has built this framework called SymTest that is more like C++ unit testy, but you're still actually loading web pages. You just control it via C++. But it mocks out like the compositor and the network, and you can get more reliable test infrastructure. But it also means you don't have to expose through this like weird IDL thing some internal guts of the system that don't make any sense. Like you can use the real guts of the system from your test.
This came up in.
I was just going to say, I think there's a distinction between you want to write a unit test, and today sometimes you do that as a layout test and poke at some internal state, versus you want to write an integration test to test a feature end to end, but you have to simulate something. Like you have to have synthetic input, or I think Vincent was probably about to say synthetic.
For interrupt tests that we're actually putting up to the web platform test, we need those tests to be runnable by others as well, right? So we can't use a proprietary layer or abstraction for unit testing that?
I think we can as a transition path. I mean, eventually, long term, we should have some standard test API that we can use for automating the browser. There's a lot of issues with that. So what we're doing on the input team as transition is there's already a bunch of manual tests, and we're doing exactly what Microsoft has already done, which is just adding a layer of automation files that say how to automate each test using Event Sender or window.internals or whatever. But that's not what Ojan was talking about. These aren't unit tests. They're end-to-end integration tests. They can be automated. There's just no standard way to automate them, but we can still automate them in a Blink-specific way without having to have Blink-specific tests.
I don't want to kill this QA with like a debate. I actually agree with what you said. But it's not just unit test versus integration test. It's like you want to be able to read out you want to do a layout and be like, how many nodes got laid out? And that's about exposing internals that are not general to web browsers. It's like, this is specific to the implementation of Blink. And for those sorts of things, it really doesn't make sense as a web platform test in any incarnation.
Yes, but at the same time, you have things like setting screen density in order to test source set.
That's synthesizing. That's a different category of thing.
But even tests that need internals can still be used test RNJS. So that's just we can't upstream them ever, but that's fine, I think.
I'm suggesting that syntax is a better tool.
Okay, last word on tests.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last word on tests then. We have we have a lot of flaky tests on our project. These suck. They slow us down. We've had them forever. Would anyone be sad if we were to declare an amnesty on them, and if no one claims a flaky test and signs up to fix it, we simply delete it?
Which platforms?
I would be very happy.
If you support the proposal, raise your hand. If you don't like the proposal, raise your hand.
I'm seeing a lot of volunteers to own flaky tests.
But in wrap up, if
no, I had the last word.
The official rat hole of BlinkOn.
Yeah.
Sim test was written explicitly to never be flaky. I came, which is a challenge, but I come from a different culture where you mock everything. Our culture is just not that, and there's an alternative to just deleting the flaky tests, which is just rewrite them in a different way.
That's what I meant by someone would own that test and take it away.
Yeah, all right, no more tests, no more tests. There's a lot to be discussed. We can discuss over email.
I was
thread or
just going to
something.
say, if you care about this, let's talk about it offline.
Perfect.
There's plenty of work to do here.
Yeah. Okay. More questions?
One more? Can I have one more?
I see one there, and then you have one. We are approaching time. We didn't have to lock everyone in. Got to an hour.
So I have a question about bug triage in a slightly different way, perhaps. So we've done a fairly good job at reducing the bugs that are in Blink. But it turns out that our bug tracker has, I think, around 5,000 bugs that have no component associated with it at all. A lot of which are forgotten and will never be looked at until somebody makes an effort at it. I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts on what to do with that.
I guess I'm most qualified to answer this. We do have a QA team that goes through things that have no component in principle. I don't know in practice how well that works.
Answers his own question.
This isn't really an answer. No, yes, we do. I don't know exactly how they choose to do things, but I know some of those bugs sometimes they give a label TE needs further triage, and then they will never look at it again. And I think, but I'm not sure, that sometimes they mark them as untriaged and will also never look at it again. And there's old bugs that empirically it seems like they're not looking at them.
I believe Christian just volunteered to talk to Shruti to figure out our bug triage process better.
Kind of to give a little more insight, we actually are trying to fix this in a more organized way. There's now a TPM who's working on this, and so please talk to them. Yes, and this is the right way to fix it.
Yeah, she's not here, but
I will direct you to the right person. It's going to be awesome. By the way, I have the final question.
Okay.
Are we awesome or what? This was great, right? This was really awesome, right?
Wait, what about if we feel like we're not awesome?
If you feel like we're not awesome, it's okay.
This is for Dimitri. Are we screwing up?
Not yet.
Okay, I guess maybe one final question for everyone is, did we like this format better than the classic Q&A? Raise your hand if yes. Nice. Oh, wait, we have a real question? I said last question. Okay. Right.
I mean, we know the last question.
Just as a follow-up, like it's a really good question. Are we screwing up? Are we awesome? Do we have any kind of, non-biased, like kind of metric-based way to, monitor that? Do we track, the specs that we ship? Sometimes saying that, oh yeah, like Mozilla will ship it, for example. They promised it in some email. Like, do we track the status of things and how is it going?
I guess I'll answer.
It knew we were at last question.
All right. That's part of, we're not doing a good enough job at that, absolutely. So the question was, do we have quantifiable metrics that tell us if we're screwing up or doing a good job? And you sounded like you were talking specifically around interoperability. I think that's a piece of it, like what APIs different browsers support. We talked a bunch about this. Big picture, platform predictability is going to own trying to come up with some metrics that we believe are better. I think a big part of it, like long term, the big metric is, are people using the web more? And is it costing less for developers to build apps? Those are going to take a long time to move. So shorter term, we want to do some other things. There's definitely, we talked about doing things like using Microsoft's API catalog, working with them a little bit to make it better, right? They've got this nice Venn diagram that shows different browsers and the specs and how they overlap. Gamifying web platform test results and actually like using that as a benchmark. What else am I missing? And we want to start doing we're going to at least try this idea of doing developer surveys, try to get some indication of satisfaction with the platform from developers. We've got a bunch of ideas. It's going to be a while before we know what actually is working there. But I think you're right. It's worth investing more in than we have.
All right. I think we're done. So again, just one more reminder, if you have SIM cards, please drop them off. You'll be actively hurting other people if you don't. They'll just be lost, probably, never to be seen again in Germany. Otherwise, thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks, Drew.
Woo.